All right, Dave, thank you so much for joining me. Really excited to kind of hear your perspective on the partnership space and the team that you're building. Maybe you could just start with telling me a little bit more about your journey and how you got to where you are today.
No problem. That won't be. I will try and keep that quick, Ty. And thank you again. Really looking forward to this. But yeah, I actually had to go to my LinkedIn profile to figure out the date. I started working in partnerships back in '07, which doesn't feel that far away, but it really is. Just from how much everything's expanded. I was with a company by the name of Serba, now called Densify, and we were in talk about server consolidation and virtualization. Before we had clouds, we had VMware. And it was how to find the right GSI partners to help us on implementations and deployments. Talking with good old IBM, GBS, and Unisys, companies that's, in many ways don't exist in their current form. Everything has evolved. So I went from there and got really lucky to land at a company by the name of Sysomos, where it was running everything. So both the direct side as well as the channel and partnerships. And that was in the kind of initial wave of social media. I think that's where I started working with one of our kind of common friends, a guy by the name of Travis Bradley over at Tipalti. Great guy. But building out from literally employee number 7.
Wow.
And because it was social media, and when, Twitter, actually, when we first launched, Twitter wasn't even part of the platform, but building out the agency networks
Mm-hmm.
because they were the trusted advisors. And it went from, building out agency partnerships to building out platform relationships, with the likes of Twitter and Facebook and the rest. And then it became, how do we build out the OEM motion with resellers and white labeling and GSIs doing implementations? That was an amazing, almost 10-year run. We got the company sold. That's where I have to say I met one of my greatest mentors when it comes to channel, and he won't even admit to channel if I tell him that. A guy by the name of Darren Walter over at Pantheon. What he was able to do with MarketWire, the company that first bought Sysomos, was build out these agency networks and relationships, not based on, here's a revenue share, here's a split, here's a lead referral, but on being the trusted advisor, doing what you say and saying what you do, and executing beyond all else. That wasn't on a SaaS platform. There were no APIs or integrations. It was press releases. So, but we got to help teach them how to sell SaaS from that point. Bought a couple companies, spun it out a couple times. I'm sure you've heard some of the great stories. But that was that kind of MBA and channel and partnership relationship. Made a whole lot of good mistakes. Tried not to make the same ones twice. And from there, I have to say, channel, alliances, ecosystems, however you want to call it, because there's a million ways we can slice it, have been part of every single role I've had. So whether I've been running direct sales and channel, it's always got to be an aspect. So from there, we went to JibeStream, which was IoT, indoor mapping. Think of selling the seat to the bicycle without the rest of it. You can sell the map, but you needed an app developer. You needed the IT infrastructure and everything else around it. So that was finding the global GSIs, finding the agencies to go build it, all to create that package for the end client. And then from there, I was lucky enough to join Tulip Retail. Everything from mobile point of sale to clienteling for the luxury high end. And even though I was running the direct sales team, every motion was a partnership. Because you need the back-end payment gateways. That's where I really learned what the joy of partnering with Salesforce really means. And whenever you hear the term business builder in Salesforce, know to dig in with that. But from there, I got one of those weird calls by a company by the name of Forma, which I had never heard of before. But they were doing something that was very near and dear to my heart: sales compensation and channel compensation. Because there is nothing in my life that has caused me more headaches than compensation conflicts. Whether it's partners not seeing and trusting in the numbers that they're getting, or dealing with a rep who didn't believe, or kept a spreadsheet and thought they were going to get paid X and got paid Y instead. And when I saw the opportunity, I jumped on board. We've more than doubled since I joined about, almost 18 months ago. Spent my first couple months building out the base and core foundation for the sales team, and now building out the channel. But I will say it is an education beyond belief, because for the first time, I don't have my team like my guys, Travis, Pablo, Carl, and building from scratch again. So I've got my business development team. I got my first new hire on the channel side just in the last 4 weeks. But learning how hard it is again, and so many of the new tools and techniques. So I'd love to pick your brain at the same time, Ty.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. And there's so much that we can jump into there. I think I would love to talk a little bit about what partnerships looked like in 2007, just to start with, to be honest. Like I started doing partnerships in, I want to say like 2014 or 2013, like right around when Adobe were launching their partner program.
Mm.
And at the time, I felt like, really cutting edge, and that we were like figuring stuff out. And it wasn't until later that we found out that actually like loads of companies had been doing this for a long time, and we hadn't figured anything out at all. But like at the time, we really felt like innovators. It would be really cool to hear about partnerships in 2007 versus like where we are today, and like you know what time traveling back, what's changed, what's working, and also what stayed the same that's surprising to you.
Okay. I I accept that challenge. And back in 2007, we thought we were brilliant. We didn't even think it was channel. Uh, to be, actually, let me get the date right. 2008, 2009 was Sysomos. 2008 was really simple. Oh, sorry, 2007 was Serba, and that was really simple. That was, hey, would you like some revenue share? And selling an enterprise product. And guess what? We're going to sell a product for $500,000, but it's going to cost $1.5 million to implement. Would you guys like to be our implementation partner? That was at the earliest days. And IBM and HP had been doing that forever. It wasn't anything that wasn't light switch.
Mm-hmm.
At Sysomos, think we were a fast SaaS startup. My first job interview there, we were still running out of the University of Toronto. I still remember building my first day at work was the first day they had an office, and everybody went into the office, and I had to build my desk. Not my computer, but my actual desk, because it all came from IKEA. But what we found were, the early adopters were agencies.
Mm-hmm.
And they were great partners at giving us feedback around the product. But what also happened is they would show our reports to their customers, and suddenly their customers would call us, their clients. And we thought we'd found something really crazy and new. Sell through. There wasn't a partnership agreement, was our standard license. Didn't have any of that. There wasn't a referral program. There wasn't a rebate. It was just, hey, if we work with these agencies and treat them well, they'll bring their enterprise clients to us. And then it was, okay, so we don't need to sell these. No one was asking for a rev share or anything like that. It was quality of work and commitment and trust, because we had to make each other look good. Then as those dollar values started getting bigger and bigger, and the clients got bigger and bigger, that's when we started getting the little knock on the door from the strategic sourcing team going, hi, What should we be doing here? How can we help you more? And that's where kind of the reseller model came in, and the referral partnerships and referral agreements came in. I'd love to say it was rocket science, but we thought it was. It wasn't.
And so tell me, because I think the agency space and partnering with agencies, I think, is so fascinating. And I've worked with a bunch of this similar ones when I was at Optimizely, I imagine. And we ran into a few things that you're describing there. I think we tried to over engineer agency partnerships and kind of got into a spot where we realized that all of the agreements and all of the certifications and training and like all of that stuff was really more for us, and like the partners just wanted a low friction way to be able to do like introduce us so that it would solve customer problems most of the time. We did move away from having agencies buy licenses Optimizely, because we felt like, well, one, the agencies were getting an amazing price, and like we were moving over to like value based pricing, and so we wanted to be able to, like, for an enterprise company, like get to a 7-figure, maybe even 8-figure deal value, whereas with an agency, we probably would be stuck at the high 6 figures forever, even if they had 30 of those companies on their license. So we did end up moving away from that kind of model. And I'd love to hear about the kind of trade offs with you on that. But I'd also just love to hear about, like, with these agencies, they're so fragmented, especially the ones that are doing social and like ad work. They're so fragmented and global. Like, how did you navigate your way around those kind of businesses? And then how did you like get to a point where you're capturing enough value from these direct contract relationships where it makes sense to sell through rather than like um, have them refer you to their customers, I guess.
I'm going to just break that up into a couple different. So on the first side, how did we do it? Like from the navigation perspective, I'd love to say there was something besides really great people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, at the end of the day, people still, like buy from people they like. So, some of those guys that, are running their own teams now, but great relationships, building out at a personal level, not as a sales interaction. It wasn't, you didn't look at the agency as if they were basically a wallet.
Mm-hmm.
You had to understand and invest. It was the events, the lunch and learns, it was the dinners, it was building up the trust and having them introduce you through the organization. You would always get in at an entry point, and that was normally on a brand team. And by doing well by that first team, they would refer you through going, hey, look, you got to talk to these guys. And what would happen is we would get an organic expansion across the organization, whether it would be from office to office or from team to team. And eventually that per project spend would get to a certain point where somebody in finance or sourcing would go, what are we doing here, guys? It's kind of the reverse of it was almost always a bottom up, a land and expand.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we could have now not so much a creative conversation or a tactical conversation about what a specific client was looking for, but much more of a business partnership discussion. And that's where we would start going in because, a brand and account team, they're not looking about how I go scale this across 30 brands that we work with,
Mm-hmm.
but the sourcing team is, because they're going to be making margin on that. If they're doing it as a pass through, what percentage of markup were they getting back in the day? Or are they doing this as we're going to buy this across the entire network and pass that savings off to our clients and make this as part of the value add? And depending on the agency and the network, that strategy changed. I'd love to say it was a one size fits all, but we had to be flexible. And what really came in is when that spend got into those 7 figures and higher, then the holding company called you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I will say those were not the most fun conversations.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
I, hindsight being 2020, I would avoid the holding companies like the plague.
Yeah.
Just because when you build from the ground up, it was okay. What were we looking for? Well, we weren't looking for access.
Hmm.
It became less of that conversation around the value we're providing to clients and more around dollars and cents. So that was that was the good and the bad. So I got to see both sides of that.
The thing I'm really interested in with these agencies is like, you're having to navigate budget constraints, with these agencies. Like in general, as agencies are operating on tight margins, especially in this kind of space.
Hmm.
And like any of this tech kind of spend is often like overhead that they almost absorb themselves, or they like there is some pass through stuff to the customer, but it's I would say it's fairly rare, or maybe like a 50-50. But so
Yeah.
how did you like what was your value prop to one of these agencies where it made sense for them to have like a seven-figure spend with you guys, that wasn't necessarily something that they could just mark up like Facebook ad spend or whatever else, which is easy to do?
Well, that was kind of the beauty of the product at Sysomos, because the first client was an agency, a PR agency. And what what it turned into is the amazing biz dev tool for agencies. It was basically Google for social, taking in all the fire hoses for things like Twitter and Tumblr and everything else. So agencies were buying it on their own because they were using it for their new business pitches. They were using it to gather the research and insights for the other project work that they were doing. So at a certain point at Sysomos, it was almost a bifurcated offering. We had the solution that was used more by the brand side, more on the monitoring, and we had more of the business development side that was being used by the agency to go, do reporting and make more money and land new deals. So getting that right product mix, if they were using it to win, they were okay spending on it, and they could also pass through the cost. So it was teaching them how to monetize it.
That's awesome. And obviously, working with big platforms in general is challenging. Like I know I've tried to partner with Facebook in the past, so I know that one, like at least my
Uh-huh.
experience of it was a challenge. Like we were never able to get that partner status. I think that was there was a small number of companies that made it to like
Uh-huh.
being a Facebook partner. So tell me, like, let's dive in specifically into Facebook, or maybe you can talk about the platforms in general.
I think due to NDAs, I can't talk about Facebook still. I can tell you, I deleted my Facebook account. I will tell you the happiest thing I did the day I left Sysomos was delete my Facebook account. So that'll tell you how fun that partnership was. We had partnered with Facebook at the same right before Cambridge Analytica happened.
Hmm.
And let's put it this way, there was a lot that had been developed that could no longer be released because of the impact of Cambridge.
Mm.
So a lot of development resources, a lot of time were burned. But that is kind of the nature when you're doing that type of development with, for lack of a better term, the 800-pound gorilla.
Yeah.
I would tell you an example of a really great partnership was Twitter.
Hmm.
I can't speak to what it's like now, but there was a great guy there by the name of Zach Hoffershall who ran the partnership program, and it was one of the core parts of our business. So, and they saw what the value of that data was to marketers. So having that and knowing that by us having that data in our system, we drove more value and more ad spend for them, but we also drove more value for the clients because they were able to build better content and understand it. There had to be value at every single stage of the partnership, not just, hey, I'll go spend $1 million or whatever that final number was to buy your data.
Hmm.
uh, it is kind of the hard part. It's If you can't figure out what the 1 + 1 = 4 is, or the 1 + 1 + 1 = 10, it's never going to work.
Yeah, that makes a bunch of sense.
Especially with those social networks.
And then you kind of talked about how you evolved into GSIs, and I wanted to talk a little bit about GSIs both at Sysomos and then afterwards as well, because it sounded like that was like when you were then working at JiveStream as well. That was something that you like basically you were working on some like bleeding edge work. At least I would imagine that would be the case in some of these SIs. So like how because obviously a big holding company already is pretty tough on the agency side, but I feel like moving into the GSI space is like even more difficult. Can you talk a little bit about experience there at both companies, doing that at Sysomos, and then also like I would imagine anything that touches IoT would be like a fairly specific new practice in some of these companies, so we'd love to hear about that as well.
I must be a bit of a sadist, but I will say it was more. What I loved about working with GSIs is how cutthroat and transparent they are. Like there is something really nice of partnering with somebody where all the cards are on the table. It was very clear as how do I build a practice around this? If I can put billable resources around this, we'll invest. If I can't, we won't. It was, what's the margin? And I think probably the best lesson I learned is it's going to take longer than you think.
Mm-hmm. How long would you say? Like, well, if you were estimating right now, if someone was like, "Hey, we're kicking off our relation, we're kicking off conversations with Deloitte Digital right now, and you know that they're going to do everything right. How long, realistically, still do you think it would be before you're seeing like meaningful business on both sides?"
Okay, so you hit the nail on the head both sides. Because if you're starting the
Yeah.
conversation and you're bringing an opportunity to them, guess what? It'll transact really quick. Uh, Without being negative, to be fully ramping and running from the time you have your initial conversation, going through that partnership agreement,
Mm-hmm.
getting their team onboarded and trained, I would tell you 12 to 18 months.
Mm-hmm.
In all honesty, there may be bluebirds that come in that you bring over, but when working with a GSI, you've got to find the right practice lead.
Yeah.
You got to have to make it dead simple on how they're going to make not 15 points on the first year, but it's got to be orders of magnitude
Yeah.
because they're working on margin. And it's how are you going to make their relationship better with their end client because they're always at risk. And how do you not compete with what they're already making and driving? Like, to be frank, it's one of the challenges with at Forma right now. Because of how much we automate in the sales comp space, it's hard to find where you bring the right GSI in that's not going to blow out a practice that they're
Mm-hmm.
already doing. So yeah, I would say, I thought agreements would be done in a month. It took 3. And that was when we had a client with a paper who wanted to run it through the GSI.
Yeah.
And then it's training and onboarding. And how do you keep the mind share? Because they've got 19 other projects going on. I will say, so far from an experience of being onboarded as a partner, Salesforce does the best job.
Mm. What stands out about Salesforce? Like, what have they done that makes you say that like it makes them uniquely good?
It's the level of enablement they do. It is the fact that they've built the community. It is the number of trainings. It's the fact that there is a trail or they have a solution on every single thing you can think of. But it is the fact that they even start off going, hey, we're probably going to compete on some things. That doesn't mean we're not going to partner.
Mm.
It is very much we're an ecosystem. It's how do I bring in the right resources? And if you have an opportunity and you have the right mix, uh, they will remove barriers for you. They're focused around getting to the end client and driving value for the customer.
Hmm.
So, and I've gone through a lot of onboardings. I went through the Adobe onboarding at one point in my life. And yeah, it's an experience I haven't seen before.
Amazing. I feel like I almost want to like Trojan horse and go through the Salesforce onboarding just to learn more about it. I've heard similar things. I think a lot of people see Salesforce as the gold standard for a few things, like for exec down alignment. I spoke with Tom Williams before, who was working there for a while, and he was saying that Benioff would say like, what's your partner strategy to every team in the company? Like if you had a plan or a proposal, okay, well, how does partners fit into this? How do I like, because people would talk about customers but maybe not partners, and so they had the top down stuff, and then like you said, they really invest in the community and the Trailblazer platform and like the whole thing. It seems like just an amazing gold standard program, but I've never been on the inside of it. Is there anything that like you kind of touched on a few things where you felt like they kind of were standouts. Was there anything in particular that wowed you as part of the program, where you were like, "Hey, oh, that is like particularly smart," or "That is something I haven't seen before," or "That's done so much better than other companies I've seen doing that."
So I have to call out, that the Trailblazer and the Trailhead program,
Mm-hmm.
just the amount of self-guided learning and the sheer, Everest-sized mountain of content that they have on any product, any use case, any vertical. I think I've only had one experience where I've had to go to my PAM and say, "Can you help me find something on this?" Which,
Mm,
when you're looking at something and you're trying to go quick, the last thing I want to go do is, set up a call to set up a meeting to find out that this isn't an opportunity
mm,
or it's something the system can't do.
yeah.
But that is, you know, between that and we're Forma was lucky enough to be included in the Salesforce Business Builder program. Before that, Tulip Retail had Salesforce Ventures as an investor and Salesforce on its board. And as you see you called it out from the top down, the executive alignment, the focus on building the partnerships, the knowing how much stickier they are when they bring us in and how a partner can help win the deal, it's in their DNA.
Mm-hmm.
That's a hard thing to teach a company. As I think we've all been in experiences where senior leadership isn't aligned with partnerships, and you've got to sell the concept. Why would I be giving a percentage of my deal?
Mm-hmm.
And it's more than just lead referrals. It is access, it's credibility, it's the whole shooting match.
And so tell me a little bit about your objectives partnering with a company like Salesforce. We had Justin Forth on here before, and he worked at AWS in their partner program. And he was kind of talking about, hey, like you can't necessarily, at least with the AWS program, expect that you're going to get many leads or many deals from AWS when you're partnering with them. It's more like a you want to position yourselves well that people can purchase your product through the marketplace, and then also like there's some good brand halo stuff there. But like it sounds like Salesforce might be a little bit different, and that reps potentially are a little bit more clued up and incentivized. But like is it a you want reps to bring you in, or is it a co-sell, or like what's the primary motion that you're trying to set up with Salesforce there?
So before I go into that, thank you for the insight on AWS. They keep getting wanting me to get listed on their app exchange. Sorry, on their marketplace.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to figure out how AWS is going to help me with sales comp. We'll get there at some point. So the short answer on Salesforce is yes. All of the motions are in play.
Hmm. Hmm.
It depends on the opportunity. It is, I work with my PAM on a regular basis. Sorry, clear my throat. Sorry, I work with my PAM on a regular basis, identifying what are the opportunities that are in our pipeline that we could use some help from Salesforce. Whether it's an AE introduction, they're networked through their accounts like you wouldn't believe.
Mm.
And, Form.ai, we've been around since 2016, but we ran in stealth pretty much until last year.
Mm.
We're targeting enterprise clients in the incentive compensation space. So without the credibility of companies like Salesforce, it's who are we?
Yeah.
So it is, it's access, it's credibility. You talked about the halo effect, but quite tactically, they've built their comp structures and models where if you're an ISV partner, you retire quota for reps.
Hmm.
You know, they're getting commission on it. They're incentivized to bring in the partner. So whether it is, hey, this is a cool technology, we think you guys should talk to them, just that little check mark saves I don't know how many BDR cold calls
Yeah.
because we're in the ecosystem. Everyone's already doing their own research. The biggest signal for anybody is a referral.
100%. Yeah, and so tell me, we're building something similar at Deal. We already have a few partners where we retire quota for reps, and we want to roll it out to our like full marketplace. We're kind of going through and updating that with all of our partners at the moment, and really excited about that. We already in the last 6 weeks drove $2 million in pipeline for one of our partners, and so like we're
Oh
really
wow!
excited to be able to do that like even really small partners find that they're getting like 2 3 leads a day from our marketplace, where if we could get 2 or 3 leads a day from any of our partners, they'd probably be our best partner. So we're really excited about being able to build something similar to Salesforce. Like, I'm really interested in, what do you do as a partner team to make sure that the Salesforce team have that, like, they're fully equipped to be able to position you guys in the way that they need to? Is that something that like your PAM manages, or is that something that like you go and do trainings with them, or you put together like a few slides that they can use, or like what you see in working on that?
Actually, this goes back to that, the gold standard of sales enablement with Salesforce. So the first thing my PAM did is teach me how to sell to Salesforce.
Mm.
So how to format our decks properly, how to pitch to their AEs when we're looking for those introductions and referrals, what type of materials and collateral, not just, hey, you should give them a data sheet. No, here's the format you need to use.
Mm.
This is the sequence we recommend. When you book a time, make sure you put in your Calendly link and send them a 2-minute explainer video,
Mm.
because they're inundated with other partners who want to take that motion, and it's making it very clean and simple. And, they guide you on how to work with them. And speaking of that 2 million in pipeline, I'd definitely be more interested in learning about that.
Yeah,
But
I can tell you all about it.
but I will tell you, one of the challenges for us in the partner motion right now is so much of the ecosystem has been designed now around small and mid-sized companies and quick SaaS cycles.
Mm.
Uh, Being more from an enterprise place where 6 months is a rapid cycle, the tickets are way bigger. Like, you're talking orders of magnitude. We're not looking at land and expand. This is an enterprise class. Uh, but you don't have 300 clients. And systems like Crossbeam hurt,
Yeah.
because when you're looking at doing partnerships and you get the Crossbeam link and you go, oh, great, I have 30 customers right now. We have the revenue of companies with 300 and 400 customers, But it's that balance point. It's what quality over quantity. Because my client base, we're not going to be able to flip over 5 leads a month to a partner in all likelihood.
Yeah.
So it's setting that kind of transparency level as well with the partner.
That yeah, I mean that's absolutely awesome, and it's really interesting. When you're when you're going to a Salesforce rep or like to your PAM, is it something where it's like you have an opportunity and you want to be able to work together with them on it, or is it something where like you could go and ask them for an intro into a company as well? Like how does that work? I
All the
guess.
time. Actually, sometimes it's, we've got this opportunity over here. We could use your help and support. And they find us the AE.
Mm.
You bring that AE in. And at the same time is, I've got a campaign running right now, and it's reaching out. One of your key clients is a top prospect for us. Love to get an introduction. And because we're an ISV partner, they know if they bring us in, one, they're going to get credit and quota, but we're also creating a better experience because we've been validated.
Hmm.
So having that level of trust.
That's
So
awesome. And so even if an opportunity, like even if you have something in flight, you would still reach out to Salesforce and kind of have them help you out with it and like go through that kind of. I'm assuming that there's like a revenue share of some sort if they're doing quota retirement.
oh, you mean they're not doing it as charitable?
Yeah,
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 should look in the
yeah,
contract better. No,
yeah,
but well, you have to look at enterprise sales cycles,
yeah.
and you can get, especially right now in the market, a reorg can kill you.
Hmm.
Uh, so having access to their network and their executive contacts and their ability, they work with sourcing, they work with IT. Sometimes it's worth it bringing in an active op to help make sure you get it across the line.
Totally.
So to me, it's always a better together. It's the old, win as a team, but you lose alone. I don't like losing
Yeah.
alone.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I love it. I wish we could probably do like a whole session just on Salesforce and like, even just on like a part of the program. Just on what you described with the type, like how they recommend you sell to Salesforce, could probably be like an hour in itself. I would. I could spend all day with you talking about this. Honestly, I love it so much. But unfortunately we're at that
Well,
time, so I'd love to ask you, like, what's something that you've recently learned that you would like to share with the audience that are listening today?
ah, got a couple of different options on this one, so I'll take your feedback on this. The probably most valuable lesson I've learned in the last, I'll call it 30 days, is while everything is changing, uh, partnerships and ecosystem plays, especially in this changing market, are going to continue to expand. Companies are going to continue to invest in partnerships because it's a force multiplier. It gives greater access, gives greater depth. And especially for startups, it gives credibility because everyone's nervous about what they buy. Having a partner, having a referral, having that badge helps lift up your company and your brand. So it's more than just, hey, I'm a partner, here's a lead referral. It helps the entire organization. The other side of the coin is I've been in partnerships in reality for, gosh, 20 years close to. And I still can't figure out Apex code. I Our listing on the Salesforce App Exchange is going live this week.
Awesome.
And I am beating my head up against the wall to joys of being at a startup, trying to get my lead routing working properly between Salesforce and HubSpot.
Yeah. Yeah.
No,
Yeah, that's never going away, probably. That's awesome. Amazing. Well, Dave, thank you so much for the time.
no, thank
Super
you, Ty.
interesting stuff. I know that people are going to love listening to this. So thank you. I appreciate it.